Next, I'm going to be demonstrating some different variations of the push-up. Now, the push-up is a staple exercise that's included in tons of programs, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't do it correctly. A couple of main things that I'm going to want you to make sure that you're doing is that your hands are about shoulder width apart, especially for females. Being out too wide can be a little bit difficult on the shoulders. Being in too narrow, while it's not usually a problem, is a little bit more tricep dominant than a regular push-up. So hands about shoulder width apart. If you want to bring them in a little bit closer to target the triceps, that's fine. We like to tuck the elbow somewhere around 30 to 45 degrees. Again, that's a much better position for the shoulder. We see a lot of women who are taught to do push-ups with their elbows out at 90 degrees, and again, that's not a good position for the shoulder. You also want to make sure that your shoulder blades come all the way together in the bottom and drive all the way apart at the top. You want to make sure the core is braced. Glutes are tight, so you want your ribs and your pelvis towards each other. You don't want your hips or your core to sag, and glutes are nice and tight. You want the whole body to move as a unit too. We see a lot of people, they'll do a push-up and their upper body comes up first or their butt comes up first, and make sure the whole body's moving as a unit. When I was first taught how to do a push-up correctly, I went from doing 16 push-ups with a 45-pound plate on my back and my feet elevated, so like probably the hardest variation of push-up, to not being allowed to do a body weight push-up on the ground. I was regressed all the way to an elevated push-up. So I'm going to show first an elevated push-up, and then I'm going to show a push-up on the ground, and leave it up to you to kind of come up with some of your own variations. But an elevated push-up, you can do this in a squat rack with a barbell, or you can do it on a bench. You just want your upper body to be elevated. Hands are in line with the shoulders. As I come down, everything's going to be nice and tight. Elbows are tucked, shoulder blades are coming together. I'm going to drive apart and drive my shoulder blades apart at the top. Again, if there were a broomstick on my back, it should touch 3 points of contact. My tailbone, my upper back, and the back of my head. That's how we know my spine's neutral. So if you want to make it more difficult, it's a little bit easier to do in a squat rack, but just to move it down a little bit. You can't really, this is not an adjustable bench, but you can always move it down a little bit or elevate yourself less. The next variation would be on the ground, just a regular push-up. So same exact thing. Hands underneath the shoulders, body in a nice straight line. Whole body moves as a unit. Don't let your hips sag. In the walkout video, I showed you all kinds of variations of shuffles and turn and reach to the roof and things of that nature. You can add those to your push-up. You can also add a chain. You can attach yourself to a band around a squat rack to make it more difficult. So there's all kinds of things you can do. You can elevate your feet, but just make sure you've mastered the basic push-up first. So that's the basic push-up and a few of its variations.